I really don't know why I'm up here talking to you, because I hardly qualify to be here, but thank you for the honor. As you can see from the title, it's a garment Wallah's perception and reality, and not a garment Wali's. So I like not having the gender tag, and I've written down that I am a woman, yet I don't like being called one. I am an entrepreneur, but I don't like the label of profit or greed that comes along with it. I am a writer, yet I often don't speak or write what I ought to. So, there are multiplicities in our life and multitudes in our life, and that we need to make choices and decide who we are or who we want to be. Being a business person and at the same time attempting to be someone else is a very, very difficult task. And while I speak to you today, I think that will be evident. One part of me wants to live the dreams up, and the other tends to bridge them with ground realities. But that's different when it comes to you. Because you see, you who are present here, and mostly the young people and the students, you have no fear. We had loads of fear. We had loads of insecurities. You have none. And while you probably will opt for a larger corporate scenario in your lives and will probably have lesser struggles than we did, you'll probably sail through it very, very smoothly, while we had lots of hiccups to handle. Our lives have been more or less a compromised life. Our lives are negotiated lives. Yours are free, so live it up. Live it up is something that I genuinely feel that you need to do. You need to live your life up with clarity, with focus, and with transparency, which most of us lack. I chose to meet you today because this is what I've wanted to do all my life. I've always wanted to talk to students, touch students, and touch their lives. And that is why, in spite of having a corporate tag, I have still gone back 20 years later, or rather, 20 years later, and I'm trying to pursue my PhD because I want to teach. So maybe in about 3 years or so, hopefully even lesser, I will probably be joining a college or university, some platform, some academic institution or the other, and I shall be teaching. And that will be a completely new role that I will be undertaking in my life, which I'm going to be ultimately very proud of, because that's what I've wanted to do all my life. I realized when I looked at the schedule that this was going to be an interactive one, that you are going to have questions to ask me. So I wrote down most of my points, and by the end of the day I'll upload it in my blog. And I'll give you the address of the blog so that if you miss out on it, if you feel bored, and if you want to go out for a coffee break, you're more than welcome to do that, and the blog will fill you in. I want you to know that you need to begin your chase now. If you've watched Wall Street 2, the Money Never Sleeps movie, I don't know how many of you have watched it. I see one head nodding. You probably know Gordon Gekko. Gordon Gekko is the hero, or the villain, whatever, the protagonist, who says, greed is good and money never sleeps. For us, money does sleep and greed is not good. Period. There is no gray area there. There are no shades. Greed is not good, and money does sleep, but ideas don't. We are living in a Wall Street bubble ourselves. And when I say this, you all know about the stock market. So you know there are manipulators, and you know there are people who are just waiting out there to make a one-time profit and kill your dreams kill the dreams of the small investors. So Gordon Gekko is very wrong. Don't follow him. If you begin the chase, you need to know a few basic facts about our economy. And I'm not going to bore you with statistics, but just to tell you that the contribution of the industrial sector in the GDP. 80-81, it was at a 17.31. A couple of years back, it was 29.73. Yet, nearly 80% of the countries employed are still in the huge informal economy where labor standards are vague. And I want you to understand that I am attempting to address an issue where I'm supposed to be most defensive, and yet I choose not to be defensive, because I do not want to lie to our children, and you are our children. So, our labor standards are vague, and the women's participation in the labor market is increasing at a 7% annually, though women workers account for only 1/4 of the total labor force of around 50 million. In 1980, we had only 50,000 women garment workers. In 1997-8, we had 1.5 million. Today, we have 2.5 out of 4. And yet, there are deficits that we are looking at. Before we go to work deficits, we'll talk about trust deficits. When I walk through our factories, there is a significant trust deficit because I don't know the names of my workers. Period. I don't. I would like to, but I don't. Each factory has at least 1,000 workers, and if I walk through every factory at least once a week, even then that's not enough to acquaint me appropriately with all the workers. So when I walk through the aisles of the factories, all of them know that I have arrived, yet I don't know who they are. To me, they're still nameless faces. I smile, I'm polite, I give them the feeling of being interactive, I give them the perception of being close to them, but how genuine am I? Or am I just doing a job which I think could have been done better? I could have sat at the factory, I could have been there, I'm not, I can't. So I delegate. So when I delegate, many things slip through our fingers. And you know, there's a constant disconnect between the management and the workers. And that's the truth. And there's no defense, there's no excuse. There is. And I've always believed in this, and I've always said that, you know, we've done too little too late. As far as garment industry is concerned, as entrepreneurs, we haven't done much. And that's also the truth. So it's too little too late, and whatever we are doing right now more or less corresponds to paperwork, and it sort of qualifies us to be compliant, literally, but in reality, I wouldn't vouch for a complete transparency here, because we still hide our records. We're still not doing the right thing, period. And the buyers are also, I don't think they exercise extreme caution. Anyway, talking about work deficits, there are deficits in wages. As you know, minimum wage has always been an issue, and we haven't done enough there. Wages are delayed, in many cases. There are long working hours, and I would like to say that I don't think even 5% factory in this country actually adheres to the working standards, because every factory does overtime, and it goes way beyond the allowed 2 hours limit. At times, the women in the factories stay up till midnight, past midnight. Maybe if the management is very good, very caring, then what happens is they usually send somebody to accompany them back home. But is that enough? And why do we do this? Why do we do extra overtime? We don't need to. We have unsafe working conditions, we have poor work environment, and everything said and done, it all comes back to law. And what is the law? There is Bangladesh Labor Law of 2006, which was revised, and it amalgamates 25 labor laws. Yet, the workers do not enjoy even the basic rights, most of the cases. I've named today's presentation the yet list. Everything is fine. Garments is the soaring sector, fantastic. We're contributing to 70% of the GDP. Everything said and done. Yet, what are we doing, and what should we do? And should we be completely transparent, or should we draw some clever lines and get away? I got a nasty memo from one of our retailers, H&M actually, and said, you know something, you violated the rules. I said, where have I violated? He said, you cannot ask any worker if she's pregnant. I said, how will you forbid me and why will you forbid me? Because that's my right. I don't want a pregnant worker in my factory. I don't, and that's the truth. And if I cannot negotiate with the government and make them understand, that's my failure. So they told me, okay, you give them appointment letters, but they are not aware of the contract and of the clauses. Now that is where we should be looking towards. We have everything set in paper, but are we explaining the clauses to our workers? Or are we just giving it and just, quietly just looking away? Because these people, most of them can't even read. So, creating awareness is something that the management needs to do. Now, there's a big yet list here. Work hours are supposed to be only 48 hours in a week with a weekly 1-day rest. Yet, many work extra hours without any rest. Yet, maximum is often defied and often crosses even 4 hours, even 5 hours actually. Around 13% garment workers said that they enjoy only 1-day rest. The rest don't. And that is the truth. Overtime is limited to 2 hours, and that's it. The law prohibits any form of discrimination against women. The law prohibits the women from working from beyond 10 o'clock at night if she's not willing. So there's another loophole there, without consent. The law prohibits the women handling, running or dangerous machines unless they're sufficiently trained. The law prohibits women working underwater, underground, and maternity leave of 16 weeks is what they get. I've picked the issue of maternity leave because that has been the most discussed one for the last couple of days, because BGMEA has come up with, BGMEA is the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers Exporters Association, and the Prime Minister back in January had said that maternity leave should be extended up to 6 months. All of us sort of protested and said that was not going to be. But I had no words to offer when a friend of mine, and she's an activist, and she has been in this, she has been monitoring women for many years. She called me up, actually she SMS'd me, and she said, what are your views on the BGMEA stance about maternity leave? BGMEA has strangely said that maternity leave, if extended up to 6 months, will contribute to population boom. Meaning, if you give women 6 months of maternity leave, they'll all become pregnant. And this is ridiculous. And just because you're giving maternity leave for 6 months doesn't mean that everybody wants to, will run to or gravitate towards garment industry and get pregnant. I mean, as if getting pregnant and enjoying the 6 months maternity leave is going to be the be-it-all for a garment worker. And for heaven's sake, how is she going to feed an extra mouth? Who's going to give her the money? And frankly speaking, I've gone through our records and I don't see many pregnant women in our company. So I wrote about it today in the Independent, and I said, what methodology has BGMEA used? What is the sampling size? What's the area? What tools have they adopted? And what gives them the right to say so? Reality is, let's take a look at how the other countries are also looking at maternity. Indian female workers enjoy 84 days as maternity leave. Indonesians, Koreans and Chinese enjoy 90. Malaysia, Philippines enjoy 60 days. And this chart that you're looking at shows Canada and Norway offering generous benefits that can be shared between father and mother. France offers about 4 months. And Mexico, Pakistan and Bangladesh are among the few nations which offer 12 weeks of paid leave for mothers. Now mind you, paid leaves. Guess what? American women are offered 12 weeks of unpaid leave under the Family and Medical Leave Act. which exempts companies with fewer than 50 employees. But in 2011, only 11% of private sector in America and 17% of the public workers in America reported that they had access to paid maternity leave through their employer. And for the first-time mothers, only about half could take paid leave when they gave birth. As far as we are concerned, there is serious discrimination between two laws in our country. One is the Bangladesh Service Rule 197 Clause 1, which says that a public servant, the public worker, can be allowed to take up to 6 months, whereas our private sector, as per the Labour Act 2006 revised in Article 46 Clause 1, says 16 weeks can be given. In reality, we actually give 112 days. 50% before the delivery and 50% later. So you see, the question is, we have huge differences amongst ourselves. So how do we go about it? You're looking at a poster, and I'm not very good at illustrations, probably a little better with writing. This says, Amar bo kaj kore na. And this is the reality, actually. Though I said I don't want to be tagged as a woman, yet I have a responsibility to tell you that since 85% of the women in this country work in garments, we are actually perceived as somebody who doesn't work. I have multiple roles to play in my life, and yet I end up doing more and more. I mean, my job doesn't end at 6 or 7 in the evening. I'm 24/7 in my BBM. I'm constantly Skyping with my customers. I'm constantly WhatsApping with them. So, question is, for us, the work never stops. And I at least have house help at home to help me out. But there are so many of our workers who actually have to go back, cook, and look after everything, and still come back the next day sharp at 7. Poster says it all. And I wrote this part down and I want to read it out. At the crack of dawn, the woman in the village is what you see in the picture. At 7 in the morning, the woman from the lower income group walks the streets of Dhaka or rides in rickshaws to sign and register and start her day. At 8 a.m., our house help comes to clean the house up. And at 9 sharp, a woman like yourselves walks into an office and ends her day contributing to her family, and that who has difficulty buying 15 taka ekta dim, 15 taka for a dim, for an egg. So all of them finish work at the end of the day, and most of them contribute to the formal economy of the country. The 2.5 million people engaged in RMG contribute to 70 to 75% of the GDP. As a developing country and as a country meeting most of the MDG challenges, empowerment of women has truly reached a momentum. It has. The Women Development Policy 2011 even makes exceptional changes in the rights of women in terms of inheritance of the property. And this particular policy has included almost all the issues and sort of attempts to address issues on controversial issues on property, land, and inheritance. And as we know, our parliament is filled with women now. So 50% of the reserve seat has been raised to 50, and our Honorable Prime Minister apparently is thinking of raising it to 100 at some point. God forbid. If that happens, we will have more bickering probably in the parliament. Anyway, point is, all these women, including the 2 million women engaged in the RMG sector, form a perception of empowerment. I stress on the word perception because the reality is very different. And as long as women, or as long as the gender issue is not projected properly at the national level, we at the private level won't have much to do, and women will never actually be able to achieve optimum visibility. As far as I'm concerned, RMG is a very mature industry, and yet we are yet to become what we ought to be, or who we ought to be. And when we say what we ought to be, I'm pointing towards the concept of CSR, the corporate social responsibility, which is a very hip word now. We use it all the time. And I would like to address this briefly with you, and then I will end and I'll wait for your questions. What is CSR? Is it just giving money to people? Or is it having an accountable conscience. I've given it a name. I call CSR an accountability to conscience. This accountability is not an easy thing. It doesn't come in a day. It grows from within. And this accountability can only come with education. If you're educated, only can you become accountable to your conscience. Otherwise, you don't see much. Education, when I talk about education, I don't want to see education which sort of prompts us to see 3 violent headlines in a morning newspaper, like today's. Rajshahi University has Sohail dead. Jahangirnagar has a problem again. And Buet, of course, has continued having a problem. So we don't want to see education occupying the front pages of a national newspaper on a regular basis and covering only the violence plays. I think it's very unfair on the teachers. And I seriously feel, I saw a beautiful photograph today. I think it was in Daily Star or maybe in New Age, either of the two, where they've taken a photograph of a teacher who's staring, gaping actually, in disbelief. I mean, it says that a teacher is shocked. That's the worst thing that can happen to a country, when the educators are themselves shocked. Because, then it only goes to prove that education has gone way beyond their control. That's something that shouldn't happen. Your teachers should always be in control. As far as the model of education is concerned in this country, how do we go about it? What is the model that we preach? Do we teach our children the language of truth? Most of our children have actually gone abroad and have had beautiful lives, while many of us didn't. Most of our children are either joining our own businesses, whereas many of us, like myself, didn't inherit a dime from my parents. Many of us have simply gone to Bangla medium schools. I have. And had a set of parents who couldn't pay for the part scholarship that was required for me to go abroad. So, I sort of had to just stay back. But parents like mine gave me a have-it-all feeling. Onek shomoy mone hoy na that you're rich from within. Onek boro lok mone hoy nijeke. So that's the feeling I had. I never wanted a new bag. I never wanted a new pair of shoes. I never needed a new dress because my parents made me feel rich. I have lots of rich friends around me, really rich, who would come back home and study with me. And I used to sort of, tutor them, guide them, and feel good about it. So enjoy the feel-good feeling. Money isn't everything. Really, money isn't. Now that we have some money, we see it through. You need money to get through, but you don't need it beyond a point. Know the balance. Draw the balance. There is a fine balance between greed and ambition and dream. Try and identify the point where human beings turn into monsters because of greed. Try and identify and pinpoint that dot, that circle where you turn into inhuman creatures. Don't let it happen to you, because that's what the society is breeding today. And as far as those of you who think that you're not getting the best education here and that you would be better off at an Ivy League, don't let it bother you. An Ivy League education does you no good most of the time. An Ivy set of parents do. You need to look up to your parents, you need to look up to your teachers, you need to look up to your colleagues, your friends who teach you. Learn all the time. That's the key. Just shekho, ar kitchu korte hobe na. That's good enough for you. And don't forget yourself. But then, don't let the word, become important. We often make this mistake. We often say, Amar company, Amar jibon, Ami, Amar lok, Amar kajer lok, Amar kajer bua. Forget the I. It's always we. It's never you. I mean, if I didn't have a group of brilliant young people way back at the office, and one of them is actually from ULAB, I wouldn't be able to be here today, because they take care of the business while I go around pitching other interests. So be averse to the concept of I, because it comes with a lot of inflated ego, baggage of an inflated ego. Give it up. In this country, we have forgotten to be collective. It's time to be collective. And It's never my business, it's always ours. Be humble. We don't, this is something that all of us lack in this country today. We are not humble. We're always talking about ourselves, or we are always blaming others. So we've forgotten to be humble, and we have learned to be, we've learned to blame very well. So the blame game goes on forever. Say no to tags. I detest being called a woman entrepreneur. I detest the gender bias. I work because I must. I face adversities as a person and not as a woman. Apart from perhaps being physically a little weaker than a man, I think I have all it takes to be in business. We have today, the website is not updated, we have 9,000 people in the company whose lives I regularly risk every time I make a mistake, and whose lives I ensure when I go right. So it's a huge responsibility. Along with me, again, I have a wonderful team which makes it happen. I never set growth targets. I think they're absolutely irrational to set growth targets. Yet, one division of the company that we run, had 52% growth last year. And I don't know how it happened. It was just magic. It was team magic. Earn trust. Make the person sitting opposite to you feel like your best friend. Assure him or her that you are on his side. And then it happens. And take a leap of faith. Always take a leap of faith. Don't play safe, please. Don't look at the safety net. Don't look for the safety net below. Just jump. And what I wanted to tell you at the end is a little bit about being a leader. Who's actually a leader? So don't get disillusioned by what you see all the time. A leader is someone who innovates strategies to help a company out of a stress situation. That's a leader. A leader is someone who doesn't exist in a cash bubble all the time, rather invests in corporate creed of fairness. You have to be fair. A leader is someone who has taken the leap of faith and knows that there's no safety net at the bottom, and that ultimately the faith's going to save him or her and the company. Being a woman is no different. I lack suitcases all the time. I have spondylitis for the last 15 years. I've been in the business for 17 years, and I've had spondylitis for the last 15 years because I lack suitcases all the time. It's always filled with things, and I'm the fastest packer. I probably take 10 minutes to pack because I'm always traveling. So it's not an easy life. It's a difficult life, but it's worth it. I lack the suitcases because I love lagging. I drag my product range with me and arrange presentations because I love being competitive. I love winning. Today, I am who I am by choice. Tomorrow, I will be who I will be by passion. I'm going to be a teacher. So, either ways, I'm always chasing the rainbow, and I refuse to settle till I bring the rainbow back home. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that presentation. I think it started very well in the sense that you were saying you're not going to be defensive. That's always a healthy response to get from any speaker. But I do have questions in the sense that you obviously are someone in the management side of it, on the other side of the garment worker, and that in itself creates a problem. When we are from the other side representing people on the opposite side, one has to be very careful. You were very good in identifying many of the problems which are extremely genuine, but I didn't actually find there was new information. I felt a lot of the information you gave was information in the public domain, information that's being debated. What I am hoping from you, because you are who you are, is what you have actually been doing to address these issues, rather than simply list the problems themselves.
Sure.
Thank you.
That would be a pleasure. Thank you. I was trying to be objective and not subjective, so I sort of evaded. As far as the company goes, what I do and what I face, it's very simple. I did mention one retailer called H&M. I mention them all the time because they're one of the retailers who insist on compliance. And what is compliance? What do we do? What we do in our factories is pretty simple. We go by the books, absolutely. At the same time, do we do anything beyond it? Yes, we do. I've started a school. We have only 100 kids there, but these are kids of the garment workers. And this Patshala, I call it Sharafir Patshala. And this Patshala is a very happy place. And it's only we've set it up only in one factory. And what I did was, I don't know if you know Jago. You do? Okay. So I invited Corvi in, je cheleta Jago set up koreche, and I asked him if he could help us replicate the school, because in Jago, you know, they do English medium. So I sort of felt that if we could do English medium also, it would help. So I asked Jago to come and replicate the same school in our other units, and Jago's working towards it. That's good news for us. What I also did was I invited 25 of the leading garment manufacturers, and I arranged a small get together, and I explained why having a small school didn't really hurt us, didn't really harm us. It wasn't a huge expense at all. Out of the 25, only 2 responded. Maybe I didn't follow up. Maybe I should have followed up. Maybe I should have chased, but I haven't. So today is a wake-up call. I should actually. So that's something we do. We've started free schooling for the kids. We also, unions are allowed in this country. But if you ask me, would I have unions in our factories? No. But our retailers always want, our customers always want us to allow and yet not allow. For their own interests also, they don't want disruptions in the factories. And yet they want to be politically correct. Now, what does the management do? A management like me, what did I do? I allowed elections in the factory. I allowed elections, but the election meant, and it was only 2 months back, election meant electing 10 of their representatives who would be speaking for them, and that would be a workers' welfare committee, which is sort of an alternative of a union. I also set some preconditions that the workers need to be at least 2 years with the company. I wanted some degree of loyalty, and I also wanted them to be at least, with their at least HSC or SSC pass. I said grade 10 holo cholbe. Ultimately, the workers who were elected could not read or write. The workers who were elected had only 1 female representative, and ultimately the thing what I have done is I've only risked this process with 1 tiny factory which is 500 people, which I thought we could control. Now when I did this, I hid this information from almost everyone, because there were 8 garment manufacturers who were trying to do this, and they were all opposing. And me being a woman, I said, I'll take a chance and let's see. Though the factory was small, but it's one of our most efficient units. I went there the other day, a couple of weeks back, met all of them, and found them happy and smiling. And they came up to me saying, Madam, janen H&M ki jigesh korche amaderke? So I said, ki jigesh korche? Pardon me, Daniel. Okay. I বললাম কি জিজ্ঞেস করছে? বলে জিজ্ঞেস করেছে যে ইউনিয়ন করতে দেয় না কেন তোমাদের ফ্যাক্টরিতে? So H&M was obviously trying to poke and ask that unionism, why isn't it allowed? তা বললাম তোমরা কি বললা? বললাম আমাদের শিক্ষা দীক্ষা নাই, আমরা এখনো খুব ভালো করে জানি না। এখন কতটা নিজেদের বিশ্বাস থেকে বলেছে, কতটা আমাকে দেখে আমাকে খুশি করার জন্য বলেছে আমি জানি না, কিন্তু এটা বলেছে সত্যি। So I think there are limits that we need to draw for ourselves, and there are risks that we need to also take educated, and ethical risks. So I think in terms of these two, we are doing pretty fine. As far as maternity leave is concerned, I'm more than prepared to give 6 months because I don't think that's going to hamper anything actually. Rather, I think this will offer a sort of a redemption for the garment manufacturers. We could do with a little bit of redemption. And as far as your observation about only referring to the regular, I think I was very irregular and very politically incorrect. Because I have taken a stand against BGMA, and I think I have taken a stance against not being transparent, and I have taken a stand also against any kind of corporate cover-up, and I have said that not more than 13% factory workers actually enjoy a one-day rest. So I think I've been boldly unconventional, and I've admitted our flaws. And that's it. And as far as health policies are concerned, as far as any kind of benefits are concerned, this is our priority. This is our priority. And if you talk to our retailers, one of the auditors actually, well, last week was a very, very good week because one of our auditors, not our, but a buyer's auditor said to our HR, the compliance manager, আমাকে বললেন না প্লিজ আমাকে কিছু দেখাতে হবে না খাতাপত্র ম্যাডামকে গিয়ে দেখান উনি যদি স্যাটিসফাইড হন তাহলে আমাদের কমপ্লায়েন্স পাস করবেন I was very happy. That meant that my buyers trusted me because whenever I'm in the factory I take pictures all the time with my tiny phone and I always notice corners which should not be the way they are and nothing probably escapes my eye. So I'm proud to be probing and I'm happily compliant.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Faisal Ahmed. Ma'am, you said the problem of the garments worker, they suffer so much in this sector. So I wanted to say that when you, by your lecture, we are more conscious about this problem. And we know the garments is a great contribution our total domestic economic sector. So actually this person who are the policy maker, what they should do and what they do to solve this problem. But we just conscious about this problem. But what they do?
Thank you. আরেকবার নামটা বলেন ভাই
Faisal Ahmed, student of Bachelor of Business Administration.
Okay, thank you Faisal. I'm not a great believer in organizations, unfortunately. I don't believe in seminars. And honestly, I don't believe in talks or talk shows. I think they're a complete waste of time, except when it comes to students and when it comes to addressing you. Organizations, the organization that represents the garment sector is BGMEA and BKMEA. BGMEA is woven and knit both, and knitwear is BKMEA. These are the policy makers, basically. And when it comes to any kind of policy formation, these two organizations are taken into account and the government sits with them and decides. I don't, strange as it may sound, these are also very highly politicized organizations. As a result, there are definite political leanings within the organization, and with every election, it's either Awami League আসছে, Awami League team আসছে, আর নাহলে BNP team আসছে. So it's either of the both. So, you know, there isn't much work which is concretely done for the sector. And as far as workers' welfare is concerned, I think there are good projects which are good initiatives that BGMA does have, but I think that is more in letters and not in spirit. So till conscious people or accountable people actually go there to their platform and volunteer joining the platform, like I probably should have been at the BGMA, but I don't. I've always shied away from all the elections. I've never done elections, even though I've been asked numerous times, because I don't think I can contribute. Because one against, you know, those bodies are 27 member bodies, and one against the rest 26, it really probably isn't going to make any difference. So the only thing is probably, the only way out is to create an awareness, a collective awareness through tools like this, or maybe new media. I don't know, but maybe we can have more blogging voices, more bloggers, more more interaction in new media, so that, you know, so that these things actually are taken care of. Maybe our flaws should be more visible, but there's no dosage, there's no হঠাৎ করে একটা ওষুধ যেটা খেলে আজকে ঠিক হয়ে যাবে। আজকে আমার বক্তৃতায় তো কিছু বদলাবে না আসলে। আমার বক্তৃতায় এতটুকুন বোঝা যাবে যে আমি কনসিয়াস, আমি একজন মোটামুটি ভাবে নীতিবান একটা মানুষ, বোঝা গেলেও বোঝা যেতে পারে, নাথিং বিয়ন্ড ইট। I cannot pledge to change the world, but I can change my own territory. So what I'm trying to say is, if you try and just reform your own space, if you try and address the problems within your own space, নিজের শরীরটাকে, নিজের মনটাকে যদি পরিষ্কার করতে পারি আমরা সবাই এককভাবে, তাহলে কিন্তু অনেক পরিবর্তন আসবে। কিন্তু সেটাই আমরা করি না আসলে। কাজে পলিসি মেকার্স আসলে কাজ করে না, পলিসি মেকার্স নিজেদের স্বার্থ সংরক্ষণ করে। হ্যাঁ, পলিসি মেকার্স কখনো কিছু করতে পারে না। That's the truth. And you know, the other truth is, I probably got the clap because I was saying something which was not expected. You know, being anti is also is hip now. As long as you protest and as long as you say the negative thing, yeah, there you go. That's also not right. You know, you often don't do the right.
I was just wondering, did you do any study on the government owners? Actually, my question is, are they aware of those laws and clauses that you were mentioning right now to us?
I think most of the owners are aware, but I don't think that the owners actually take the trouble of looking at the handbook. But all the owners are, don't ever make a mistake. Everybody knows what's in the book. Every owner can cite every law, every rule. It's just that we would rather look away. You see, we would rather look away and not do it, because আজকে যদি এই 8 সপ্তাহ থেকে 6 মাস করা হয় ম্যাটারনিটি লিভ, তাহলে কিন্তু আসলে আমাদের প্রবলেম হবে। আসলে হবে, কিন্তু হবে না যে না আমি খুব জোর গলায় বলছি, যুদ্ধ করছি যে না ঠিক আছে দেব, কিন্তু অনেক কষ্ট হবে, অনেক কষ্ট হবে, এবং হলে হবে, কিছু করার নেই। কিন্তু তাও যদি if it helps settle a little bit of unrest in the sector, good. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this and if it's right to say so, but I will risk it and say it. You have no idea how many labor union leaders come to our doorstep every other day. You have no idea. You only hear about the negatives, but the extreme negatives that we face is chandabaji shesh nai, taka newar shesh nai. Most of them are corrupt. I'm not saying that there are no honest and pursuing activists. I'm not saying that, and please don't pardon me if I've even insinuated. But আমাদের যে কি পরিমাণ কষ্ট করতে হয় with labor leaders to manipulate, you have no idea. একজন এসে বলবে আমাকে আজকে আপনার ফ্যাক্টরির জুট দেন, আরেকজন এসে বলবে আপনি ওকে দিলেন কেন, আমাকে দিলেন না কেন, পরের দিন আমার নামে আরেকজনকে যাকে দেয়নি সে মামলা করবে। রেগুলার বেসিস হচ্ছে। করাপশন কোথায় নাই? যারা নীতির কথা বলেন তারা সবচেয়ে আগে নিজেরা নীতি ভঙ্গ করেন। এছাড়া, and that's the truth, that is the truth. So you know, this is how we erode our conscience, this is how we, and আমি একটা কথা বলেছি যে আমরা আমাদের বলছি আমি নেগোশিয়েটেড আইডেন্টিটি, অনেক কম্প্রোমাইজ আইডেন্টিটি। তোমাদের কিন্তু না রে বাবা, তোমরা কিন্তু একদম হাত পা ছাড়া। হ্যাঁ, আমরা we have had to compromise, ঘুষ দিতে হয়েছে, এটা করতে হয়েছে, ওটা করতে হয়েছে। এক সময় এক্সপোর্ট করতে গেলে we had to pass almost 32 to 33 desks at one point. তোমাদের কিন্তু কিচ্ছু করতে হবে না, hopefully, because we have set the system up. তুমি যখন ঘুষটা দেবে, তোমার কোম্পানি ঘুষ দিচ্ছে, তুমি হয়তো নিজেই জানবে না, কারণ সিস্টেমে ঢুকে গেছে। You know, we have systematized corruption. It's true. So আমরা নিজেরা সব নিয়ম জানি, নিয়মও ভাঙি আমরা জানি যে এটা করণীয় না, কিন্তু যখন না দেখতে চাই কিছুই দেখি না, যখন দেখতে চাই অনেক কিছু দেখি। থ্যাংক ইউ।
আমার কোশ্চেনটা হচ্ছে, আমাদের বাংলাদেশে রেডিমেড গার্মেন্টস সেক্টর বা গার্মেন্টস ইন্ডাস্ট্রি বলতে আমরা যেটা বুঝি, সেখানে আমরা প্রায় নানা রকম ডিসপিউট দেখে থাকি, আর ম্যাক্সিমাম টাইম ট্রেড ইউনিয়ন সংক্রান্ত বিষয়গুলো। এবং এখানে যেহেতু আমাদের স্যার গার্মেন্টস ওনারদের কথা বলেছেন এবং বিভিন্ন শ্রমিক সংগঠনের কথাও আসতেছে আস্তে আস্তে, তো করাপশনের কথাটাও আসলো। তো এখানে আমার জানার বিষয় হচ্ছে যে বিজিএমএ বা বিকেএমএ যারা আছে ওনার্স অ্যাসোসিয়েশন যারা তাদের কি কোনো ইনিশিয়েটিভ আছে কিনা যে টোটাল ইন্ডাস্ট্রিটাকে আমাদের পলিটিক্যাল অ্যাফিলিয়েশন মুক্ত রাখার কোনো ব্যবস্থা আছে কিনা বা ইন ফিউচার কোনো ইনিশিয়েটিভ নিতে পারেন কিনা?
থ্যাংক ইউ ফয়সাল। তোমাদের কাছ থেকে তুমি বলি, হ্যাঁ আপনি বলতে পারি না আমি। তোমাদের কাছ থেকে এরকম প্রশ্ন পেলে ভালো লাগে, তার মানে হলো যে আইডিয়ালিজম শেষ হয়ে যায়নি এখনো। গুড। একটা ছোট্ট জিনিস শেয়ার করি। আমাদের দেশে মার্কিন রাষ্ট্রদূত গতকাল একটা মেইল লিখেছেন বেশ অনেকজন গার্মেন্ট ম্যানুফ্যাকচারারকে, তার মধ্যে আমরাও পড়েছি। সেখানে কতিপয় জনৈক আমিনুল ইসলাম নিয়ে একটা ইয়ে আছে যে আমিনুল ইসলাম হ্যাজ বিকাম, I hope you know, remember Hillary Clinton came and said Aminul Islam has to be, she introduced. Frankly, if you ask me, and with no disrespect to anyone, I didn't know Aminul Islam. He was not on our list ever. And I came to know of Aminul Islam only through Mrs. Clinton. So I was interviewed 3 days back by a young, brilliant woman who's a graduate, no, she's graduated from Columbia, political science diploma degree ache. She's a model, a beautiful, striking model, 6 feet lamba, Sarah Zif name, Save the Children ambassador. So she came in and she said, tell me about Aminul Islam. That was a shock, and that's the reply I gave her. I said, look, Aminul Islam was first introduced to me by Mrs. Hillary Clinton. That's the first time I ever heard of him. And then she said, do you think Shanta Garments actually did it? I said, did what? Killed him? I said, no way. Shanta Garments couldn't have, they really don't need to kill a labor leader. You don't need to kill labor leaders, you just bribe them. Sorry to say this, but some of them, not all. Not meaning to be derogatory. Unfortunately, the leaders, the labor leaders who are mostly portrayed in the papers have very close links with people beyond our borders. They're far closer to either the Americans or the EU, and we often hear of them from them. So before addressing our own problem, we often turn to those outsiders. And I will mention the word outsiders, and I mean it. These labor leaders, when they come to the negotiating table in BGMA, and I was only present in one of the negotiations, so I saw it, they speak a different language when they're on the table. And they speak a different language when they're outside. Outside, they are the rebels and everything. Inside, most of them are compromised. Most of them are compromised, and all of them who are present, who are more or less known and seen in the papers, speak a different language with the owners. Because the owners do have money, and don't you ever forget that. So money automatically has a different connotation for anyone. And this is what we mean by oppression. This is what we mean by manipulation. Money does manipulate. It doesn't sleep, but it manipulates. I'm not saying all the labor leaders are bought. We've had some excellent friends who are labor leaders. Some of them have died. Some of them are still living. But they're not the ones who are in the picture playing the cards. They're not the ones. The ones who play the cards are the ones who are seen are not the ones that represent the best interests of the workers. So I think as much as we talk about policymakers at the higher level, at the owners level, with a lot of disrespect, I also have reservations about the labor leaders. Yes, BGME and BKME has done or have taken steps to address the discord, but most of the time the discord is settled in favor of the garment manufacturers, because once again the workers' interests are not well represented. I think one solution to the problem is unless the owner himself or herself gets involved in the day-to-day transaction of the factory. Like I always sit at the office and I go probably once a week to the factories. unless I'm right there, unless I'm touching them, I don't think the change is going to come. The change will only come when I talk to them directly. And there should be no bridge. A labor leader should not be my bridge. My own worker should not need any bridging. I should be right there for them, period. I speak with a lot of confidence because I've tried it myself. And I would like to share a small incident with you at the risk of running late. Delaying you. Amader ekta factory te Narayanganj, we had a serious problem a couple of months back, and there was police intervention. The police beat up a couple of our workers, and the workers thought that the management had put them up to it. I hadn't. So the next day, I risked going to the factory. By the way, my husband didn't, who's the chairman of the company. He didn't. I did. And I had a 5-hour-long dialogue with the workers. But when I went there first, amake dhukte dicchilo na. They didn't let me in. They said, because I was absolutely surrounded by police, industrial police, and they were saying, Madam, apni bhitore jayen na, apnake ora dhore felbe. And the workers were standing there and saying, it's either you alone or you cannot come into your own factory. It was a very, very difficult position for me. I took a chance. I looked at them and I said, okay, no police. You cannot imagine what the police told me. The police looked at me and said, apni next time amaderke paben na. You will not get us the next time. Because now you're refusing our help, you will not get us the next time. I said, I don't need your help. Went in, sat with them for 5 hours, had a hoarse voice at the end of the day, negotiated what I needed to, came back. But before I came back, you know what the last thing they said was? They said, Madam, apni ekটু ট্রাকের উপরে উঠবেন আর একটু মাইক টানেন একটা বক্তৃতা দেন আমরা ছবি তুলবো. So I said, আমি কেন ভাই ট্রাকে উঠবো, আমাকে আপনারা ছবি না, অনেক রিপোর্টার আসছে অনেক জায়গা থেকে, অনেক সাংবাদিক. So they were saying there were lots of journalists, so we would like you to go up on the truck and take a microphone and say a few words. So you see, television, media has also seeped into our culture. So it's a question, it's a publicity, it's publicity, it's image, it's simulation of reality most of the time. So we are also all crowded. Most of the time when our policymakers speak, they speak because they're being photographed. Most of the policymakers speak because they know they're going to be watched in the talk shows. That's not what it ought to be. So as much as they're aware, they're also taken up with a lot of image building process. Do you get it? Thank you, Faisal. আমাকে আজকে মার খেতে হবে, লেবার লিডার যদি কেউ থাকেন এখানে.
Excuse me, I have a question. I'll let it go there. My name is Shair Hassan. I am CEO of Nestinia. I am an entrepreneur in software sector. Listening to you, I learned that there's a lot of problem in this sector. The union leadership and the intervention of outside countries. So I would like to know what's your outlook about this industry.
একই জিনিস তো. How can we change systems overnight? How can we rectify problems overnight? The change can start, it can begin, but frankly, what can we do? Can we not pay attention to labor leaders who exist? Are they going to just evaporate? Can we not pay attention to the greedy owners who continue to do what they do? I think the answer is just within yourself. You change your own space. That's what you do.
Actually, I would like to know what you think the future will look like. Yeah.
Future, I think, is not going to be as dismal as I sound. I think the next generation entrepreneurs, like my son has joined the business and has taken it forward also. He has a different perception. He has a perception of profit sharing. He has implemented that in his side of the business, and he doesn't wait for his father or me to decide. because he believes in it. He says, Mommy, I will not be able to be productive if I don't share my profit. So he started a change. I'm happy that he has. I couldn't in my lifetime. He has. I'm watching him change. So I see a lot of hope with the young generation coming up. I think most of the young people here, if they go into the business, will have a better vision, a better heart to accommodate more generosity, which we lacked. I'm hopeful. The answer is I'm hopeful.
As a matter of fact, thanks for bringing up the Aminul Islam issue. Myself, I'm Amanam Abdul Mannan. I teach here, and I also write for newspapers. And I have written a number of occasions on ready-made garment sector, unrest and other issues. And like you, I never knew who was Aminul Islam unless somebody from United States came, and no less than a person like Hillary Clinton first introduced Aminul Islam to us. So I tried to ask few of my, I have my students who runs very big garments business. I have many friends who were BGME bigwigs. I said, how come we didn't know about Aminul Islam before somebody else came and told us? They said, well, we even didn't know who was Aminul Islam. Now my question is, first, are there Aminul Islams in this country who are being sponsored by people from outside Bangladesh? Secondly, how many of these Aminul Islams do you know or the other entrepreneurs know? Because now it has become a big issue, not only for Bangladesh, but internationally, in the international arena, that people like Aminul Islam gets killed in Bangladesh because they happen to be in the union or amongst the labor union leaders. Now, a labor union leader is very sad that somebody gets killed. No one enjoys, no one supports that. A labor union leader can get killed for many different purposes, not necessarily related to anything about garments. He can be mugged, he can be killed on the street. You know, nobody's life is safe, secure in this country or any other country per se. Now, unless, this is not a question, this is a comment. Unless entrepreneurs like you are aware of this chemistry that is happening with Aminul Islams, because we always get to hear about the Aminul Islams, not the good works that the garment sector does, like you did said about the school, running a school. I have a student who runs 5-6 factories, and he has schools, he has daycare centers, he has home service, medical care. No media in this country ever speaks about that. No foreign diplomats comes and says, well, this is the state of the art industry or a factory. So I think BGMA has a task to bring forward not only trying to expose what good things they are doing, but individually select factories, companies who are doing a lot of good things, but they go unnoticed. And the Aminul Islam gets a big international coverage and national coverage, and it hurts the prestige, the image of the country and the industry as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think there was a comment. So
yes, it was a comment.
It was a comment. Thank you very much. I'd like to just end with this. I'd like to end with this. I was mentioning about the American ambassador and I got swayed away. The American ambassador a couple of days back was trying to address the Podda Bridge issue with the press, and then sideliner he just mentioned, we're going to take this Aminul Islam case very seriously and we may stop doing business with Bangladesh. So I was asked by a couple of reporters, and I was not quoted by intention. He said, what is your reaction? I said, American ambassador has no right to say that he's actually going to be the deciding factor and that business with Bangladesh will stop because of Aminul Islam. This is ridiculous. He couldn't have said that. I think there's a serious misreporting. And I would have believed that till I received a mail saying Aminul Islam issue is very important to the United States of America, and America is considering serious, I don't remember the word, but they use something, Bangladesh will be suffering serious consequences if Aminul Islam issue is not solved. I have no idea how Bangladesh garment sector is going to solve Aminul Islam issue. I have no idea how United States is going to react to this. And I have no issue where we are heading if we are constantly threatened and badgered by outside forces. No, I also don't know of many Aminul Islams. And yes, I also know of many of them. So it's a contradiction that we live within. But then we are all about contradictions. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.